In the days following the reign of the three god kings, Sumeru lived under a golden era of peace and prosperity. King Deshret, the mightiest of the three, chose to share his reign with two others, despite having been given the chance to rule solely by the heavens. This era, however, was short-lived, as King Deshret's aspirations led to the destruction of their paradise oasis and the death of one of his beloved companions. In the immediate aftermath of the fall of the Paradise Kingdom, many cities rose and fell like mirages in the night, as transient as falling meteors. Ruins kept intact as the ancient dreams and secrets still slumber under the shifting sands. As you all know, 3.4 is fast approaching, and it seems fitting to talk about the next location we are about to explore, the ruins of the once great city-state of Gurabad, one of the ancient kingdoms that existed after the goddess of flowers' death. I know that most of those who watch the trailer have questions. What is Gurabad? What is the story behind the eternal oasis? Or what is beneath the sandstorms shown above? To make it easier to understand, I think it would be better to start from the very beginning. Civilization is born of knowledge, and so too can knowledge be its demise. This quote was mentioned in the teaser, Lost Legacies in the Sand, which summarizes the events leading up to the sacrifice of Rukkhadevata, and how King Deshret's civilization was deduced to only a fraction of its might in Aru village. However, it does not mention the city of Gurabad, or tells the whole story leading up to how Aru village was founded. So, in today's video, we are going to talk about just that. This video will also tell the history behind Aikanum, Tula, and even Organa, which was once a city ruled by pirate lords, and the conflicts between the different city-states located in the Great Red Sand. As a disclaimer, I'll try to completely add all the important details and make it easier to understand. I made sure to use NPC models for each name so you won't get confused. Take note that these characters' appearance might appear in future versions. That's why it is important to still take note of their names, as it might be mentioned later on. Also, we could be wrong on some things, as changes may occur with the progression of the game, but we tried our best to stick with the facts shown by different artifact set descriptions, books, weapons, locations, and tied them all up. Now with all that said, let's begin. The land of Tevat is an ancient mysterious place with many years of history. Wars have happened year after year, as many political parties, kingdoms, and civilizations fight over land, resources, and on top of that, the continent of Tevat is also governed by rules established by the heavens itself. However, not much is known of the time before the second who came arrived in Tevat, and brought collapse and destruction towards the ancient civilization known as the Sealies. Now we all know that Sealies were once humanoid creatures before they were into wisps of light, who now only guide people who lost their way. Sealies were believed to be the envoys of heaven before they were cast aside. They are responsible for the construction of many ruins we can see in Tevat. Now, it is true that most of them were turned into these wisps, but reading from the artifacts at Flowers of Paradise Lost, it seems that a certain Sealie did not receive the same fate as her kinsfolk have. This certain Sealie was known as the Goddess of Flowers. After the fall of her civilization, she somehow managed to stumble into the barren wastes of Tevat and roam the land for 72 nights. In that time, she gained powers to turn the land into a lush green site, filled with streams which sprouted night blue water lilies. And from these water lilies, the Jinn was born. The Jinn, who were described as creatures of wisdom, thank their mother by creating a garden of flowers where she can visit every time. Now, it is unclear how many years have passed, but along the way, the goddess of flowers meets another individual of the sky. This individual's name was Deshret, the King of Red Sands. Shortly after, the goddess of flowers meets another, an entity known as the God of Wisdom. As mentioned from the Scroll of Streaming Song, It tells of how the goddess of flowers asked Rukkhadevata 3 riddles to test whether she lives up to her title. As expected, Rukkhadevata answered these 3 riddles with savvy and wit, even surpassing the goddess of flowers' expectations. By this exchange, the goddess of flowers also befriended Rukkhadevata, and together, the 3 formed a strong alliance which would last for the ages. They built an oasis where their people would prosper, and named it Valley Vidya. While King Deshret brings strength and power, Rukkhadevata with wisdom and sensibility, what the goddess of flowers brings is love, music, and joy. With an equal sense of distribution, the people of Valley Vidya entered a golden age, a time where flowers blossomed under the guidance of the 3 god kings. Still, there came a time where gods would compete with each other for power and dominion over the region. This was known as the Archon War, which we know so far has also happened to the rest of the regions such as in Mondstadt, Liyue, and Inazuma. This time in the region of Sumeru, it bore a different result as compared to the others. Of the 3 god kings, the heavens, Celestia, seem to have offered King Deshret the ownership of Enosis, speculating that because he is the strongest of the 3 gods in Sumeru, he was the choice that Celestia made. Despite this opportunity to rule the desert, King Deshret declined the offer and made the choice to share his sovereignty with his 2 friends. And so the years of prosperity and peace in Valley Vidya continued, and time after time, the Sabzerus festival was celebrated in honor of the goddess of flowers. You might say that this could have been a happy ever after ending, but not all stories end in such circumstances. The time of prosperity and peace soon began to fade when King Deshret started to question the heavens, and ambitions ran through his mind where he refused to let it pass by. With these new ambitions he developed, he tried to persuade the goddess of flowers to share with him the knowledge she knew before she was cast aside. At first, the goddess of flowers warned him of grave punishments that would happen if he were to continue on this path of ambition. However, setting aside the warnings, King Deshret did not wish to be dissuaded. Seeing as King Deshret had no plans to stop, the goddess of flowers explained her past, a past about the second who came, the divine nails that were sent down from heaven, and the identity of Phanes and his 4 shades, whose authority must not be questioned. Reading from the Flower of Paradise Lost, the goddess of flowers says, "Since the disaster, I have long been cursed to never again look upon the heavens. It is my fortune that I have been able to maintain myself till now. Heed my warnings, seek not Phanes, and inquire not the mysteries of sky and abyss, for certain calamity and sorrow shall follow." King Deshret responded by sharing his ambitions with her, ambitions where the cycle of 7 must be removed and the barrier between life and death be destroyed. From the Staff of Scarlet Sands, which, by the way, is told by his perspective, King Deshret says, "Remove the sun, the moons, the weight, for there should be no barriers between time and space. Remove the original principles of rules, verdicts, and grace. Remove birds, beasts, fish, dragons, humans, and 7 monk kings, so that none shall steal wisdom." It seems that King Deshret wanted to challenge the rule of Celestia and establish new principles that will govern the whole of Sumeru. It is also possible that he wants Sumeru to be separated from the whole of Teyvat and exist as a land that is outside the authority of Celestia. Whatever the case, it seems that the goddess of flowers eventually agreed to help, and they both learned the forbidden knowledge about Teyvat's origins. Learning such knowledge came with a price, and King Deshret was willing to trade in their paradise oasis Valley Vidya. After this exchange, it seems that sandstorms began to form and soon destroyed Valley Vidya while also taking the life of the goddess of flowers. With this destruction, hope remained as the survivors of the paradise oasis ventured into new lands, building new tribes and cities. However, these new tribes and cities began an age of chaos, an age where the once united people of the 3 god kings now argued and bickered amongst themselves, each one vying for control over the other. This age was known as the Age of Division. Grieved with her loss, King Deshret decides to build the goddess of flowers a place to bury her, and so seek the knowledge of the Jinn to guide him. It is here he starts to collect the 1001 Jinn by keeping them sealed in magic silver bottles, a reference to the legend of genies kept in sealed containers from popular media. So with the 1001 Jinn now sealed, King Deshret tries to search for the divine nail located in Mount Damavand, and under this divine nail is where he decides to build the burial place, the place now known as the Eternal Oasis. After this oasis paradise was constructed, the Age of Division ended, and it seems that 100 years have passed after Vali Vijay's destruction. With this oasis paradise, King Deshret appoints the greatest of the Jinn, named Ferijis, to guard and govern the Springs Eternal. Hearing this news of a new paradise oasis constructed in Mount Damavand, the three great tribes known as the Tanit, Uza, and Shimti gathered around the place. So with the people of King Deshret and Rukkhadevata united once again, they decide to build a new city, a city known to be majestic and serves as a paradise for Jinn and mortals alike, a city known as Aikanum, the city of amphitheaters, or the city of the Moon Maiden. In all of its grandeur, take note that King Deshret did not only build one city, but two other more, which were the city of Aktamun and Kajnisut. These three cities would be one of his greatest accomplishments as one of the three god kings in Sumeru. From his rule, he also appointed three retainers, the Ibis King, the Goat King, and the Crocodile King. These three would serve as his advisors and help him govern the nation of Sumeru. Now, it is still unclear whether Greater Lord Rukkhadevata already left by this time, but it seems that there is no mention of her involvement during this era. Now, turning on to another integral part of the story. During this time, a certain shepherd named Ormazd Shah from a nomadic clan found and met a genie named Lilopar. Take note of these two characters because they are some of the most important figures in this part of the story. Ormazd Shah found this genie Lilopar to be alluring and charming, resulting in a love that Lilopar returned. From the Desert Pavilion Chronicle, Lilopar said this to Ormazd: "I shall grant you 100 generations of blessings at the sharp retribution and the spilling of red wine, for the mad love that we Jinn possess is chained to greed and want." Hearing her words, Ormazd couldn't help but only notice the reward and not the consequences that came with it. Still under Lilopar's guidance and help, Ormazd soon became the leader of his clan and roamed the desert, conquering and defeating his rival clans until he, ultimately, became the king he sought to be. Now all the scattered tribes of Sumeru bowed and obeyed the commands of Ormazd alone. King Deshret would soon take notice of this and saw that this Ormazd, a mere mortal compared to his strength, has a heart of iron that cannot be tainted by the temptation of corruption. Together with the Jinn as his envoys, King Deshret made a pact with Ormazd and all of humanity, a pact that named Ormazd as his vassal king and him as the Lord Patron. Now that Ormazd's power knows no bounds, he called every slaves from every tribes and cities he conquered and ordered them to build a new city, a city whose temples and palaces would worship King Deshret's will alone, a city with towering spires and golden halls, a city that all mortals in Sumeru will look at with pride, a city named Gurabad. Over the years, more settlements and cities were built around the Eternal Oasis, with Gurabad serving as its capital. Here, Ormazd Shah is declared the King of Kings, with the fairy Lilopar as his queen. It seems that Gurabad has a life to endure for many more centuries to come. However, under unexpected turns, Ormazd Shah and his legacy is only a shard of what is to come. Bloodlines are a sacred part of every family's legacy, and it is what keeps kingdoms intact for many years. But it is also what causes war, and war is a force that is unstoppable when the chips fall at the right moment. This starts when Ormazd Shah and Lilipar had a daughter named Shirin. Blessed as the great king was with their first daughter, Ormazd Shah forgot that with a genie, reward also comes with consequence. Because before their daughter Shirin was born into the world, Lilipar prophesied 3 things. Now take note of these 3 things because it connects to a well-written story. Firstly, Lilipar prophesied that Shirin would fall in love with a great hero and that their offspring would surpass her father. Secondly, Shirin's relatives would enjoy a sweet end. Lastly, Shirin alone would be given possession of her father's kingdom. At the same time, Lilipar also gave 3 admonitions where first, Shirin's happiness or joy would bring tears to Ormazd's eyes. Next is that they should no longer share a feast after she was wed. And lastly is that Shirin's heir would serve as an ill omen to Gurabad. Still, the same as before, Ormazd ignored these admonitions and prophecies, not knowing the fates that he had set for his kingdom of Gurabad. Now, dubbed as the King of Kings, Ormazd had power that no one could ever imagine. With this power, it seemed that being married to a genie Lilipar wasn't enough, because as mentioned in the tale of Shiroya and Shirin, Ormazd had 300 more offspring, probably with other women not mentioned in the tale. If that wasn't yet enough, Ormazd also adopted another, a son named Kisra. From the story, it seems that Kisra was an orphan who was raised by a giant bird named Gognus. Ormazd got to bond with this orphan and saw his ambition for greatness, thus why he decided to adopt him. When the young boy now came under the care of Ormazd, he grew up to be a conqueror, a vanquisher of different rival states who enslaved their people. In the book, it is mentioned that he conquered 99 cities, but this could only be an exaggeration of the story to serve as a manifestation of his greatness. Because of his accomplishments, Ormazd saw that it was only fitting for Kisra to let him marry his daughter, Shirin. And so, the first prophecy that Lilipar foretold has been fulfilled. Shirin got to marry a great hero in Kisra, wherein after their marriage, his name was changed to Kisra Parvesvaran, the spirit of unceasing victory by King Ormazd himself. From their marriage, a son was born, and this son would be named as Shiroye. Now, these next events are one of the most fun we had while reading the lore behind these artifact sets and books, so get ready to be amazed as well as we did. Okay, so through the years, Parvesvaran and Shirin's marriage grew stale, and at the same time, King Ormazd turned from a wise and gentle king to a power-drunk tyrant who now only cares about his wealth and stature. While Lilipar advises Ormazd about his tyrannical behavior, Ormazd continues to ignore her warnings and words. From a shepherd who possessed a heart of iron to a tyrant, Lilipar mourned the changing of her husband. With this tyrannical behavior of Ormazd, he made many new enemies, enemies who were once his friends, his advisors, his comrades, and also those he once considered as family, particularly his daughter, Shirin. Still ignoring the advice of Lilipar and a brewing hate between her daughter Shirin, Ormazd organized a party wherein Shirin, his own daughter, was not invited. On that grand bouquet, feasts were being made, toasts were being spoken, and the King Ormazd seemingly enjoying his time. Finally, when the last toast was announced, and the guests and 300 offspring drank the sweetened honey from their cups, a deafening silence was heard into the golden halls. Suddenly, King Ormazd and his 300 offspring were choking, having no control of what was happening, and blood splattering from their mouths. The servants at that bouquet could only watch as they could do nothing to stop the blood from gushing from their mouths. Finally, when the night grew darker, everyone in the room was dead. King Ormazd and 300 of his children, dead. Their cold bodies lay on the ground. Now, who was the mastermind behind this plot? It was none other than Shirin and his husband Parvesvaran. The next part that happens in the story is messed up, because knowing that the servants at that time saw the incidents, Parvesvaran framed them for King Ormazd's death. The servants were punished by placing them in pots and drowning them with honey. As the only remaining male heir left, the throne of Gurabad now passed to Parveswaran, from once a hero of the people, now to a lying and backstabbing kinslayer. With the death of King Ormazd, the queen widow, Lilipar mourned the death of her husband, and decided to leave the palace as a response to Parveswaran's treachery. It is unknown where she went, but hopefully the next patch will answer this question. Going back on topic, with Parveswaran as the new king of Gurabad, he decides to banish his own son, Shiroye, in fear that the same fate that happened to Ormazd would also happen to him. Parveswaran took note of Lilipar's admonitions, and unlike King Ormazd, he decides to believe in these prophecies. In his action to banish Shiroye, he gave his son a brass mask to hide his face and a horse, and told him to never set foot in Gurabad again. Saddened and having no choice, Shiroye did his father's orders and fled from Gurabad. As the years passed, Parveswaran's reign was not a good one. While he did abolish slavery in Gurabad, he still made some decisions which were hard to ignore. With this, his wife, Shirin, decides to scheme behind his back and meets their son Shiroye in the temple of the moon goddess. From this temple, Shirin convinces Shiroye to fight back and ensure a rebellion against his father, Parveswaran. At first, Shiroye couldn't come to terms with what his mother had told him and left the temple crying, while Shirin was told to have been laughing at his reaction. Eventually, Shiroye couldn't ignore his status as an exile, and so decided to recruit as many followers as he could. From the Transparent Ruins record, Shiroye and his followers would meet in a hidden oasis, and to symbolize their affiliation with the cause, they wore brass masks. Soon, this rumor of a rebellion spread throughout Gurabad, and to oppose this, Parveswaran announced that he would reward any citizen who would reveal their whereabouts. Now, it doesn't explain the full story, but it seems that Shiroye managed to be successful in his rebellion against his father. According to the tale of Shiroye and Shirin, Parveswaran was stabbed in his bed by his son. Shiroye was said to have cried before his mother and regretted his act of treachery against his own father. This shows that Shiroye was being manipulated. Now in the city of Gurabad, 2 kings have already died at the hands of treachery, and the next new king, Shiroye, still grieved at his father's death. Despite being the new king of the great city of Gurabad, there is meaning to the saying, "Heavy is the head that wears the crown." As Shiroye experiences trauma and nightmares from the treachery he committed, it also didn't help when his kingdom suddenly experienced a great crack in the earth, causing him to fall to his death. From this great crack, a type of plague also seemed to emerge that killed half the people of Gurabad. Later, the survivors of this event named it Shiroye's Plague, believing that it was a punishment brought by the heavens for their acts of treachery. So with Shiroye's death, Gurabad is left leaderless, and as chaos grew, the great city's glory was reduced to bits.